So as you can see, I got a resin 3D printer from Elegoo. They were nice enough to send it over to me to try out and show what it can do. And it does some really nice work. So I'll go over that and show you how you can print jewelry pieces or even stuff for like lost wax casting using one of these. And they're relatively cheap for what they can do. So let's get started. So if you don't already know what a 3D printer is, or especially a resin 3D printer, it's basically a light-based printing system that has a UV resin inside of it that goes layer by layer to build whatever you designed. And if you look at these, you can see the crazy amount of detail that's in this. There's a full staircase that goes up it, and then a little helix in the center. And this was all done inside that printer, made out of a liquid resin. And this is one of the things that people use to do castings, because you can design stuff on your computer, put it in here, and have it done already, instead of having to make it using wax. But there is a learning curve to all this, because you have to know how to use a 3D program. There are free files online that you can download and use in this, but you can't really sell them because they're open source or they're licensed in a way that you can print them all you want for yourself, but you can't actually sell them. But I'll go over more of that once we get over into the computer part of this. Like I said, these use resin, which differs from the traditional 3D printers that you might know about or might have seen that use a filament roll like this. And basically, think of it as a hot glue gun that is programmed to continuously put down glue until it makes whatever, but with plastic. But with the resin option, you can get extreme details. And that's why a lot of people use them for making jewelry, is because of the fine details that they can do. If you want to look at the actual machine itself, it's right here. It has this little cover on it that keeps out the UV light, because if you have UV light come directly into here, it'll harden all your resin, ruin everything, and you have to scrape that out or get a new plastic piece that goes on the bottom. So let's get a little bit closer. So you can see that there is a clear resin in here, and that's actually what I used to print these out. And the only real moving part on here is the actual print surface. It just moves up and down. So it'll come down, dip into the solution, the light will be blocked in all the areas it doesn't need to be, harden the resin, and then pull back up so it can get fresh resin underneath it and come back down again. Very simple design, but it works really well. With that being said, this resin right here is not made to be casted. So if you don't know anything about casting, you have to put this into an investment compound and then burn it out for hours. And if it leaves any type of ash behind, or if it expands as it's burning, it ruins your casting. And I've never done it with these, and I don't think these would work very well, but they do make a wax-based resin, or a resin made for that. That is pretty expensive, but well worth it if you're doing stuff like this. Speaking of the resin itself, this is the resin that I'm using inside of this. It's just a standard resin. When you're looking for resins, make sure that it is the 405 nanometer wavelength, because that's what this machine uses. It's pretty common, but you can find stuff that is not that, and it won't work on here. It also tells you what the exposure settings and stuff and the shelf life is, because this does have a shelf life. You might have also seen another one of my videos that went over a similar machine to this that was much smaller. And it being much smaller limits you on a print bed area. But depending on what you're working on, the print bed really doesn't matter. And the resolution between the two doesn't seem to matter all that much either, just because of what we're making. So navigating your printer is pretty easy. There's a setup process where you have to level it. There's detailed paperwork with it, and it's a very simple setup. But all we need to do is go over to print. It'll have all your files that are on the supplied USB stick and I just find the one that I actually want to print, which is this ring right here. And I didn't make this ring. This is an open source ring on Thingiverse. I'll make sure to have a link in the description to it so you can check it out if you want. But all I need to do is go over here and push start, and it should start going. So as you can see, it's going to just lower itself down into the resin and get the first bit of the print started. So the screen down here will actually display what it's going to be printing, each level all the way up, and it tells you how much time it has been going for, how much is left, and how many layers there are. So we're going to have to come back in about 2.5 hours for this to be done. One interesting thing is, you could fill your entire build plate with this ring, and it would still only take 2.5 hours. It's the same amount of time no matter how many you put on there. Alright, so that is all done. Let's see how it actually turned out. Also, when dealing with this, make sure you have gloves on, because this stuff is really bad for your skin when it's not cured. So there we go. It came out pretty nice from what I can see. But I need to take it off the build plate and cut all those supports, and then clean it off in some alcohol, and then put it into a UV bath to finish curing this. So let's do that. So I basically just have 2 containers full of 91% alcohol. If you can get a higher grade of alcohol or higher percentage, that's better, but that's as high as I can get my hands on. And then I'm just going to use a spatula to take this off. And I put down a metal sheet so I don't get resin all over my work area. You might also notice that there's a toothbrush. This is for cleaning off more of the piece. So I'm just going to take this and throw it into the alcohol and kind of agitate it. So there we go for the first bit of the wash. And then we're going to rinse that off in the second container of any extra resin. And you could see that this is yellowed. It's because there's resin inside of here. And what I'm going to do is just put the top on this and put it to the side. So the next thing I need to do is cut or break all of these little supports off. So I can just push with my finger, and they just start snapping off. If they're a lot thicker, you have to actually start cutting them. So there we go. So you're going to have little nubby bits where it was connected to your supports, but other than that, it should be pretty clean. And I didn't size this ring or anything. Like I said, I just downloaded this and put it directly into my machine. So the last thing I need to do is completely set this and cure everything. And to do that, I have to move some stuff around. Also, make sure to clean this off of all your resin and everything so you can put it back into your machine. So the extra pieces like this, you can also cure them all away if you wanted to and throw them away, or just throw them away. Alright, so I have this little stand that spins with UV light, or any light, because it has little solar panels on the sides, or a battery in it if you don't have light. But we're not going to have to worry about the whole light problem, because this is a large UV light that is going to cure our piece. And it's real bright. So I'm just going to let that sit there like that for like 10-15 minutes, and it should cure up our piece. Also, I'm doing it on the area where I was cleaning everything up, so it should also cure anything that is left over on this, so we are not dealing with just raw resin everywhere. And I'm going to go throw these away. Try not to touch anything with these gloves. because you will have resin on them from dealing with everything, and then you'll start spreading it around everywhere. And like I said, if you get this on your skin too much, it can start reacting with you and cause an allergic reaction to sunlight. Alright, so the ring is all cured now. And it came out with a lot of really good detail, and all the words and everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. But we still have the support marks, which are these little like bumps here. You could just use a file to file all of this off, but we're not going to be actually using this for casting or anything because I don't know how this resin would even do for that. But keep an eye out for a future video because I'm going to be ordering the proper resin and doing a casting. So with all that being said, this can't really be used as a piece of jewelry or even casting materials, but we'll try it whenever I actually get my casting setup done. But we can make something interesting that we can set into a bezel setting if you're wanting to use a unique look or your own pieces, but keep in mind it is going to be plastic. So when it comes to actually setting up your piece to be printed, this is the program and environment you're going to be in. It's going to be Chutubox, or however you would pronounce that. It basically comes with the printer on the thumb drive. And this is the open source file that I downloaded for the ring. But you can't just print it like this. It won't work. You have to have some supports, because how the thing prints is it goes up. It does basically one layer at a time and continues up. And if it doesn't have supports in certain areas, stuff is just in mid-air. And you can't really print something in mid-air. So how I did this is I took the piece itself and kind of laid it down at a 45-degree angle. So like this. And you would think that that's making it worse, but it also helps with the text and everything in here. And it just kind of helps angle stuff around. Technically, this part right here would be in midair. So I might need to actually move this a little bit more. Like that. So it builds out to it. And you could check that by going like this. So you can see that I have it in midair right there. So if I take this and move it a little bit, that should work because it's connected to the rest of this. So it's a 31-degree angle. But now that I have that, I need supports. And you'll notice that this gets pushed up into the air. And now you have all these options here for supports. I'm going to just use really light supports, because that's all I really need. I'm not going to mess with anything here besides click Add Platform. And what this will do is it'll make a base plate down here to stick everything to our build area better, because if you don't do something like that, it's not going to stick, it'll fall off, and you can ruin the machine. And then you can see how it made all of its own supports. You probably can get away with doing this at a 45-degree angle, because I already have, and it came out fine. So let me go back and switch it, but like I was saying, you want to look for overhangs and stuff in midair and eliminate those as much as you can. So there we go, that's pretty much how I already have printed one, and it was successful. And one interesting thing with doing resin prints like this is if you have the same exact model multiple times, it takes the same amount of time as doing one. So if you fill out your build area and everything is one height even, then it'll take the same amount of time. So this will take about 2 hours and 30 minutes to print. Well, if I have two of them here, it would take the same amount of time. So that makes it interesting when you're trying to make castings. So you could just push Control and Control C, Control V, and you can put more in, like so. And let's see how much we can actually fill out this area. So there we go. You could technically put 6 on here comfortably and have them printed in this 2-hour span. So that also means that if you made them in different sizes, it would be about the same. So I'm just going to go over here to slice, and it'll basically figure out how it's going to do everything. So there we go. It'll give you something like this, and it'll tell you what machine you're using it for, and you have to make sure to set this up in the beginning. I have 2 machines that use this program, so make sure you're using the right one. What kind of resin, the weight and volume of everything, the price based on how much your resin costs. So to print 6 of these rings, it will cost 52 cents, and it'll take 2 hours and 15 minutes to do 6 of these. You can also go through this and check how everything is going to look. You can actually play this and see how it will look as it goes. And it basically looks like an MRI happening because it's going up layer by layer. So once you have all that figured out and done, you just click save and it'll make a file, and you could save that to your thumb drive and take it over to the printer. So when it comes to designing your own stuff, it's a steep learning curve to learn how to actually make interesting or detailed stuff, but making simple objects is very easy actually. So this is Fusion 360, and I also use another program called Blender. So both of them are basically completely different, but you can get the same to similar results. It just depends on what you're going for. This one kind of is better at making more organic things, and this is more for making industrial type stuff. But you can make organic stuff in here, or vice versa. But like I said, they're both kind of hard to learn. This is an easier program to learn, but you're more limited, I feel. So what we're going to do is draw from a flat plane first, and then turn it into a 3D object. This will probably make more sense after I do it. So I just click on whatever one I want to use, and I'm going to go up to here and make a ellipse. And I want it to be kind of small, so 20 millimeters, and click. And then I can drag it out, and I can just type in 40 millimeters, or let's do 30. So there we go. We have an oval, and we can move around the oval and see that it is just a flat piece right there. What we could do now is basically finish the sketch and tell it, yeah, this is what we want. If I click on this and go up here to extrude, and let me flip this over so it's facing the right way. If you pull up on this, it will start making a 3D object. But I don't want it that tall, and I can just be like, I want it to be 8 millimeters. So now we have a 3D object, but it's not too interesting. So one thing we can do to, let's say we're just making a basic cabochon shape. And why would you make a cabochon doing this? You could technically make a plastic cabochon using the different really cool looking colors from the resins if you wanted to make jewelry like that. Or you can use it to make a mold to pour other types of resins and make your own types of cabochons. So we need the top of this to be rounded. And one easy way to do that is to add a fillet to it, which is basically just rounding the edge. So you can go and round the edge up. But you can't go too much. It just freaks out and it doesn't work. So something like that would work for a cabochon. And you can basically just push OK. You could try to fill at the top up here if the program will allow you to, but it doesn't look like it's going to. So that's pretty much it for making something simple like this. There's hours upon hours of tutorials on how to use these programs that I can't possibly go over, and I'm not the best at doing these, but I can get stuff done if I need to. So what can you do with this once you make this? You can go up to your tools up here and make, click on the object you want to make, and then you can save it or open it in a 3D system. So I'm going to just save it, and I'll save it to my desktop, and it's just going to be named Body 1. I'm going to open Body 1, and there we go. We have our little cabochon that I built. You're going to run into that little bit of a problem of it having weird lines in it, and that's just kind of how that program works. It doesn't have as much control over stuff like that, at least that I know of, to throw into this and go over it quickly. Alright, so this is Blender, and this is a very good program for making 3D models that are more organic, and you have all the freedom in the world. But with all the freedom in the world, it also makes it a lot harder to work with. This program is basically, you need to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts to use this well. So I'm going to just kind of talk through it real quick and show you a very basic setup, because I haven't used this in a couple months and I've forgotten a lot of it, so I am very rusty. So if I push down Shift A, there we go, and this allows me to add stuff to my scene. I'm going to just put down a circle. Once you put a circle down, you have options here. I want this circle to be 20 millimeters, and everything else can stay the same. You have to worry about vertices in this one. So that's one big difference between this and the other program I showed you. So as you saw in the other program, you could just do this, click on it, and extrude it, and it makes a solid object. This program does not do that. So you have to go into edit mode by pushing tab, and now you have all these new options, and you can start clicking on the different vertices here. And if you just click on one and push G, you can move it around in 3D space, which we don't really want to do. So what we're going to want to do is select all of them. So I'm just going to push Alt and click on it, and it will basically select that entire row. And then I'm going to push E for extrude. So now this will make some faces, which will start our 3D object, but you'll notice there is no top or bottom. Also, it gets a little wonky wherever you move it. You can stop this and make it go straight up by pushing Z, and it'll just go on the Z axis. Also, you can type in how much you want it to go up, and I'm going to just do 8 millimeters by just typing in an 8. My entire program is set up in metric, so it knows when I type that in that I'm talking about millimeters. But we have this now, and this is not the same as our other program. We can't print this. This is infinitely thin, and it has no mass or anything to it. So we need to make it a solid body. To do that, I'm going to actually click on the bottom and make our floor first, and using the same Alt click to select everything. And then I'm going to push E for extrude, and you see it does the same thing as before. But if you push S, it scales it in or out. And yet, don't try to retain this too much. You're going to have to go through like full training things for this program if you want to get any of this down. But I'm just showing you the difference between the two and the learning curve on both. So I bring this in, I push E again, and scale it again. So it'll make sense in a second why I'm doing this and not just going straight to the middle. But Here we go. And if I push F when all of these are selected, it will make just a solid face in the center. So that should be good for this. Now for the top, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to bring in like that, probably to here, do it again, again, and again, and again. And then I'm going to push F. And there we go. So we have that and that. So if you're looking at the top of it like this, you can switch your stuff over to just select the face. And there's this cool tool up here that it affects an area. So by clicking that turns it on, and then you can tell it which one of these you want to happen. So if I clicked like random, and then if I click G for move and X to move up, it'll make a point. But if I scroll up on my wheel, it'll start to do something like this. Because it's literally grabbing and moving stuff around randomly. But I'm going to push Control Z. And another problem with that tool is it's going to start selecting the bottom because they're too close to one another. So what I'm going to do for the bottom is just click on it, hold down Control and push the plus button on my keypad, or my numpad, and then push H and make that disappear. So it's not going to mess with the walls, and the bottom is not there right now, so it won't move that around. I'm going to go for a sphere shape and click there, and then do the same thing. Just push G and then Z, and you can scale this. If you scale it too much, it'll start moving the bottom, which we don't want. And if you're having problems with seeing, you can escape from that, push 1 and you'll get a side view, and then push the same buttons again, which is G and Z, and you can see it move up. So now we have more of a dome going on. I'm just going to make a circular cabochon to make it easier. So to get back our pieces that were hidden, I'm just going to push Alt H and it'll bring back the hidden pieces. And if I push Tab, you can see what it will look like. And this would technically print out faceted like this, which could be interesting looking for jewelry making. But I don't want the facets. I want it to be smooth. So I'm going to go to the modifier part of this and do a subdivided surface. What this does is it cuts it up into more vertices, which makes it smoother. And you have control over that over here. So I can up this to make it really smooth. Like that. The problem is now the bottom has a curve on it and I want it to be flat. So if I go back into the editing mode, I can see my old vertices. I can also turn on the new ones to see those if I want, but I like working in these better. If I push Control R, it'll add a new line or a loop, and this will allow me to start tightening up my edges. So if I want the bottom to be completely flat, I just drag it all the way down, and now it's flat. And I could bring in another one and tighten up the top here, so we have more of a flat sides and then curve, like that. So technically, there we go. We have like a round cabochon. But with this, you have more control, like I was saying. So if I go up here and I want more of some like insets in here, I'm going to use the loop tool, which is the Control R, and add in right here. So now I have this area. I'll select the faces on it. Well, all the faces. And then I'm going to extrude it, but I'm going to right click so it just stays exactly where it is. And then I'm going to just Alt S, which will scale it in and out. This is not what I wanted because I have the proportional tool on. So I'm going to undo, turn that off, and then push Control S. So this will allow it to come in or out. So let me escape from that and show it a better angle. So there we go. So I can make it come up. I can make it go in like so. And if we look at it, it has a nice curve to it. But if I wanted to tighten that up, I could push the Control R and add loops in to pull this closer together and make it more defined. So if I tab back out of that, you can see how sharp the edges become after that and defined they are. Or you can even grab like this loop here and let's do a scale on it. We could scale it out, we could scale it in, and it'll start changing the shape of our piece completely. So the only limitations on this is your imagination and your skill level. But there are tons of tutorials on YouTube that are free, and there's a lot of really good paid ones too to learn this. And there's lots of plugins just for jewelry making if you wanted to use those. So you can design full rings and everything in here if you wanted to. Also, if you wanted a better look at the details of this ring, I put a thin coat of paint on it just so you can see how it turns out. You can see that the print quality is awesome. It's just right here would have to be polished and buffed down if it was going to be used for anything or cast. So that's pretty much it for this printer. It's really inexpensive for what it does, and if you are going to get into casting, a printer like this will help you immensely. But like I said, you're going to have to learn how to do the 3D programs or pay someone to make your files for you. I'll go into more detail in a later video on some designing stuff for making basic things once I shake off all the rust that I have built up from not using the program for a couple months because I've been busy doing other things. This was sent to me free of charge from Elegoo, and they are offering a discount on this printer, and they sell them on Amazon. So you can pick one up if you are interested in one. You can find all the info on the discount and links to where to get them in the description below or in the first comment. So due to my setup right now and what's going on, I can't set up my casting setup safely, and I'm planning on moving soon, so I don't have the room or time to get that set up right now. But as soon as I move, all that will be set up and casting will happen, and I will make sure to make detailed videos on it. So that's it for this video. If you want to see another video of mine on another printer similar to this one, it'll be in the link right here. And if you want more jewelry tutorial videos, there's a full playlist right down here. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.